Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Pleasure and privilege to host you here at T-Hub. So today we're going to be talking about a very interesting theme. It's about the culture of ideation at Berkadia. And I have with me three leaders from Berkadia. To my immediate right is Randy Jenson, the president of Berkadia. We have Andrei Chursov, who's the senior vice president at Berkadia. And then to my extreme right is Bryce Nyberg, who's the director of corporate development, Berkadia. So let me kick it off, Randy, with Berkadia is like everything associated with Berkshire as very low profile.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe we can start with you giving us a quick overview of yourself.
Sure.
And a little bit about Berkadia.
Sure.
And what Berkadia is doing in India.
No, happy to do it. My background, I actually came from the private equity business. Berkadia's name, Berk, comes from Berkshire. Adia came from a company called Lucadia, and I started my career after business school at Lucadia. And we invested a lot in distressed companies and other things like that. And in 2009, in the great financial crisis, we found an entity called Capmark that had some very interesting assets, and we bought into that, and that was the initial formation of Berkadia. We service about $400 billion of commercial loans. We originate about $60 billion of transactions a year in commercial real estate, both sales and financing. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. Capmark had a presence in Hyderabad for a long time when we bought the company, and we've steadily grown it since. I think when we acquired it, it had about 400 people, and now we're up to almost 1,200 people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andrei, a quick intro.
Yep.
What of your background?
Yeah, so I'm Andrei Chursov, and I joined Berkadia about 2 years ago, and I lead transformation work jointly with my co-workers, esteemed co-workers, I might say, here in India, Kalita, who is here with us as well, T-Hub and others. And so we will focus on transformation. And transformation at Berkadia, unlike many other places that immediately jump to digital transformation, our transformation is in many ways about mindsets and about how we work and how we work as people together. And in particular, some of the examples of what we're transforming is our planning processes, how we think about the future, how we measure our success as an organization, how we work on some of our most profitable and largest volume channels of execution that Randy mentioned, as far as both sales and mortgage originations. And so those are some of the examples, but I look forward to exploring that with you, I'm sorry, in the next 30 minutes.
Thank you. Bryce?
Yeah. Bryce Nyberg. I've been with Berkadia for a little over 6 years now. I was brought into Berkadia with the expectation that I would look externally, look for partnerships, look for opportunities to work with other organizations and companies that would support kind of our vision for the future of commercial real estate, our vision for the future of Berkadia. And I've been doing that in different capacities, working in and alongside transformation. And now I oversee corporate development, especially when it comes to our technology partners and leading our startup accelerator, Be Engaged.
So, Randy,
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about Be Engaged at length.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is something I'm sure you've been involved in from
Yeah.
the beginning. Must have been part of your strategic vision.
Yeah.
So let's start with a question to you on what prompts a large company, as talked about $400 million, $60 million. A lot of this you probably could do yourself.
Right.
So what is it that kind of said, okay, we have to go and figure out a way to engage with startups, and also if you could give us some guidance on what's been the general philosophy.
Sure.
How do you engage with startups?
Sure. Happy to do that. Well, first of all, you said maybe you could do this yourselves. We quickly realized we couldn't. The world is full of knowledge and it's full of opportunities. And for us to be successful, and we're coming from an industry that I think has been rather slow to adopt a lot of the technology innovations over the last several years. We believe we're at a transition point where that is going to change rapidly. And for us to be successful in navigating those transitions, we felt like it was incredibly important for us to get involved in the landscape, see what's out there. We want to be able to take advantage of that to help us better serve our customers and also to help foster additional innovation in the startup companies to help us better serve our customers. So it's really for us, it's a strategic imperative. And because we're coming from an industry where I think some of that inherent DNA and technology isn't resident, it was important for us to go out and find it, bring it into our culture, bring it into our planning process, so that we can survive and thrive as the industry evolves.
Sure. I think some really great points you made there.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think it takes, I really appreciate the humility. You made a point about saying, listen, we recognize that our industry is not necessarily at the bleeding edge of technology, and that we felt there's an opportunity to go out and engage and work with the larger ecosystem. And so that, it takes a lot for a leader like you to be able to say that.
Yeah, it's an imperative.
You talked about being a very strategic imperative, right? About how to go through transformation.
Yep.
Right. So there was another question I had asked you,
Yeah.
right? From a overall philosophy standpoint, right? What let's say if I were to ask you, what are the 3 parameters we think about when you engage with startups, or the 3 vectors along which you try to align how you engage with startups?
Sure. I mean, first of all, the first parameter has to be around the value proposition in terms of how we can engage with our customers and help them achieve their goals and objectives. We are primarily an intermediary. We are a service provider to developers and investors in real estate. And so the first really is the end user customer value proposition. That's first and foremost. Then we look inside to our own process, right? How can we be more efficient at what we do? And thirdly, how can we increase the knowledge base, within the industry in general? We will benefit, we believe, for the type of company we are, if we're at the leading edge of being able to advise our customers. And one of the great things about real estate is it generates an enormous amount of data, a lot of which is uncaptured. We think some of the opportunities from a technology standpoint are ways to gather that data in so it can be analyzed and put to use for everyone's mutual benefit. The world will benefit from greater efficiency as that's applied, and we believe will prosper right along with that.
Sure. So I think you mentioned value proposition.
Yeah.
Second is efficiency.
Yeah.
Third is knowledge base.
Exactly.
And then you also talked about a point you made about data-driven decision making, if I were to paraphrase what you said.
Exactly.
Yeah. Use data more analytically to be able to arrive at more informed.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrei. Randy. I'm going to ask you another question. I'm going
Sure.
to turn this now inwards.
Yeah.
Right? So you mentioned that you have about 1,200 people here in India.
We started with 4. Now we have 1,200
people in India. And worldwide, I'm sure you have a large number.
About 2,800 people.
2,800
Yeah.
people worldwide, right? So now it's like mid-sized, not from a financial perspective, but from a headcount perspective, right? So one of the things we think about when we talk to leaders like you is how do you create? So one is the external innovation, right? Engaging with the startups and figuring out how to leverage what they are doing and apply that back in your business. But also from how do you foster and create a culture of innovation and within Berkadia. You have 2,800 bright minds working with you, but how do you create
I think the most important principle that underlies that is this sense of humility that we have to be curious. We don't have all the answers. If we approach a problem thinking that we've got it, we'll lose every time because there's a much larger knowledge base and so forth out there. So I think that has to start with leadership, being humble and realistic about the things that we don't know. And so having a culture where it is safe to bring up a partially baked idea and allow that to be fostered and grow. We need to create an environment where that's a viable, opportunity. And I think that's absolutely foundational. So we've been going through a bit of a transformation. The business has been around, for several decades, but there really is a change in culture and mindset that we're in the midst of creating that environment where ideas can foster and grow. And it absolutely starts with hiring really smart people and creating an environment where it's okay to make a mistake and be wrong, to be able to put an idea out there to generate more.
Okay. No, I think you made some really fascinating points there. I think the first point is you talked about humility, and that kind of linked back to the answer to the first question I asked you. Second is you said it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Right. Third, I could sense you were trying to say that they're not judgmental. Right. We allow people to come up and express ideas, and we try and see how we can. I think lots of leadership lessons for many from what you said.
Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Andrei, I'm going to get into a question on building on what I asked Randy here.
That sounds good.
Which is, are there, you've been running this now for 2 years. So are there any specific learnings or insights which you can share with us?
Well, I actually would build a little bit on Randy's point around how we think about this and how it's in our DNA. And in Berkadia, we have two values that are foundational to the company. We stand for excellence and we innovate. And so I think those are the two of the drivers of our engine, if you will, in terms of how we think about transformation. And there's definitely a cultural transformation where our learnings are about how we work with leadership teams, how we work with teams at large. I would maybe cluster them into three groups for the purpose of this discussion. Is to say, one is that we actually need to engage leaders, and leaders, by virtue of being a part of this process, part of the transformation, create a safe space, a psychologically safe space for their teams to operate and work in a way that actually explains what we're trying to achieve across the tiers of their teams. In other words, it's not just about the person who runs the whole organization, but it's about people within the organization understanding where we're headed. So the first lesson is really, it's about creating the space. It's creating leaders that actually believe in their vision of transformation and can motivate their teams. The second lesson I would say is around having a more holistic approach. So in other words, it's not about just one team changing. It's about a multitude of teams across value stream, across the value chain, changing together. And we just had example in one of our execution channels, literally 10 days ago, Randy and I were in a planning session where three leaders about a year ago were going in slightly different directions. Now, a year later, they're a lot more cohesive, and we're seeing that in both their financial results, as well as, frankly, how much more pleasure they derive from working together. And the third lesson, I think, is also about transformation being close to the business results. And that's why, I mentioned the planning process from the beginning, because we do believe that, setting the right targets, setting targets that are stretch, that are motivational is an important foundation for this process. But then building on that process, explaining how our cultural transformative efforts, how our various initiatives work towards achieving those goals. In other words, they don't hang in the ether, they hang towards a specific business objective and outcome. And that's kind of our foundation and the driving rallying cry, if you will, for the transformation.
Sure. So I think, again, three great points. Thank you. Thank you, Andrei. Bryce, I'm going to come to you. Right. And you've been kind of the backbone of the Be Engaged program, right, in terms of the execution and so on. Right. So first of all, let's go back to the beginning. Right. First of all, how did what was the genesis of the idea? Talk us through the initial, I'm sure you would have had to position it, get, for example, Randy's buy-in and funding to execute. Walk us through that.
Yeah. Fundamentally, I think Be Engaged was an extension of some of the efforts we were already undertaking at Berkadia. We were working with early stage entrepreneurs, talking to them, trying to figure out if they had something that we could use in our business and that we could promote with our network of clients and partners. We hadn't put the full structure around that and said, this is what this should look like. This is how we'll work with entrepreneurs on an ongoing basis. So it came to a point where we had done enough work that we realized there's more to this. We're getting real value out of it, but we can do better. And the Be Engaged program was that package to get more out of it and make sure it was a win-win for us and for the entrepreneurs. It turned out that we created another win in that for our clients and even another win for our partners. So we've been really pleased with kind of how the program has developed over the years, how we've been able to bring in partners to Berkadia, which are capital providers that we're lending on their behalf, and also bring our clients who are operating real estate into the Be Engaged program, share with them what these entrepreneurs have put together, really special, unique solutions that we think are changing the industry. We can put that in front of this whole ecosystem around us and create real value for them. And so there's always been this kind of push from the organization to move in that direction, find ways to bring these ideas close to us, of course, but also how do we get that out across the industry? How do we promote it? How do we make this not just about Berkadia, but about the full value chain that we interact with? And as far as getting approval from Randy, I think we had maybe 1 or 2 conversations about it and said, hey, we're doing a lot in this space. We can structure it much better than we have in the past. And it was a pretty quick sign off, I think, from Randy.
Both of you very lucky.
Yes.
Indeed we are.
Yeah.
I'll pay you later. Oh, I pay you every 2 weeks.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then once in January.
And the next question I'm actually going to ask both of you to respond.
Yep.
And I'm then going to ask Randy to build on what you said.
Right.
So one, obviously you've been involved in running the Be Engaged program, and can you just share, with us, let's say 3 examples of successful collaborations which have emerged from the work you're doing at Be Engaged.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to ask you, Andy, for an exec level view
Sure.
of how they benefit
Yep.
the larger corporation.
Sure. Let me start with one that's actually from this year, working with a company that was in the machine learning and AI space. They were part of our Be Engaged program. We had brought them close to us. We had said this is a technology that makes sense for our industry. The premise of the tool was about extracting data out of documents, commercial real estate documents. And they could do that for an ever-growing list of real estate documents, continue to train models to do more and more. That premise was really fascinating to me, of course, and other leaders across Berkadia quickly saw what was interesting in that company. And from there, we did a few experiments inside the organization that was jointly between my team and Andrei's transformation team, working with our business leaders and saying, hey, let's test this product out. Let's get our hands around it. Let's make sure we understand how effectively it really does the job that the entrepreneurs claimed it would do. And I think we did it at the right time because we were able to see real value, see real promise in the tool, see an opportunity for how it could serve Berkadia and other use cases as well. And because we had done that background through the Be Engaged program, taken the effort to experiment with the founders and with the tool, when those founders came to us looking for an exit, we were well positioned to say, oh, we understand this product. We see the value proposition for our organization and how we might be able to better serve the industry with that technology. And so the timing was perfect for us to say, hey, we've laid the groundwork of understanding with this company through research and experimentation to then say to the founders, like, yeah, we're absolutely interested in this solution. And we acquired that that property or that company.
That company folded into Berkadia.
That's right. Yeah, we acquired the technology and we were able to bring on select employees that were key talent to support the technology.
How long was the whole cycle from start to exit?
We had worked with that company for over a year, so it was a relatively longer cycle for Be Engaged, but one that fostered really close relationships with the founding team and led to solid data for us on what they could actually do.
Sure. Great example.
Right. I'll follow up with a different example that actually brings together transformation and Be Engaged. So we actually had an instance where we had a construction pipeline of work, and we have a regular reporting that goes through that pipeline, and the team was asking transformation to work with them to improve their ways of working, how we think about that. And so we initially deployed the typical, you would think about process mappings and various modeling and Excel and all sorts of tools. And we relatively quickly realized that while it's improving, it's not cutting the time and the speed to the extent that the team was asking for. And they were asking for, call it 60 to 70% improvement. And so we actually partnered up with Bryce and found an organization, a startup organization that actually is pioneering, is currently one of the leaders in this construction reporting technology in the United States. And we just happen to have a relationship through Bryce and the Be Engaged program with that organization. And so we were able to bring that inside and we actually deploy very carefully at first in our construction team, spend some time actually deploying the tool, learning, figuring out how it works for our team. And by now we are hitting those marks of about 60, 70% enhancements. And we are frankly poised for substantial growth in what we're doing in this space.
Thank you. Two great examples. So your 30,000 feet view on.
No, I mean, I think these are great examples of what can happen. And it wouldn't have happened without the Be Engaged program and being out and probing what's going on, in the broader technology space. I think for firms that are our size, we don't have unlimited R&D budgets. This is a really economically efficient way for us to take advantage of innovation that's going on. And the employees that Bryce is talking about really added a whole new dimension to our own internal capabilities and the software that we can now use. And the software company Andrei's talking about, we may make an investment in that company as well as being right now, I think we're their largest customer and so forth. And we've been able to help them grow, and they're selling their software to some of our competitors, which actually we think is probably a really good thing in the long run, both for us and for the startup. So we're excited to engage, in different ways. We bought another company that was as a software product that we sell earlier on before Be Engaged was actually formed. But those are some of the ways that we've engaged with startups, and it's been really a successful part of our strategy.
Sure. So you have an option of where you start with partnering, then potentially invest, take a minority or what strategic stake, and then potentially acquire, right? So, okay. So you see
all of the
above.
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Okay. And I'm going to throw this question first to you, Randy, and then I'll go back to Bryce and Andrei. We live in a fast-changing world, right? And obviously, I think the path you've embarked on, saying that we have to build on the success of what we've done in Being Engaged and earlier initiatives. So suppose I were to ask you, what are the 3 or 4 areas from an open innovation perspective, which right now, let's say from a 12 to 24 months window of time, which are the areas where potentially you look to partner with early stage companies?
We're just starting some pilots with some folks that are engaged in the virtual reality part. I mean, we sell a lot of real estate. Being able to effectively help investors get up to speed and understand a property, we think there's some real opportunity. Secondly, further understanding how AI is going to evolve in our space. We need to get smarter on that. That's gonna help us, inform our strategy as we approach that. Those are two key ways that we're really focused over the next 12 to 24 months for sure, and I'm sure beyond.
Thank you for the invitation. It's been a great partnership with you guys because the element that Randy has mentioned around augmented reality and virtual reality is in many ways coming through this T-Hub partnership. We are truly interested in this topic, and we have invested a little bit of time already, in working with you guys. But we will look forward to exploring this deeper. But actually, AI topic I think is of interest in a sense that not AI is created equal, and so our view on that is I think of two minds. So one is the juxtaposition of actual artificial intelligence, the rest of the technology stack, and the human side of it. And I would venture human side is about 60-70% of this kind of conversation. So as we talk about AI, I think the important part for us would be to actually find real use cases where there is meaningful difference applicable to commercial real estate that can be generated, and how it translates through the whole pipeline, mindsets and technology included. So I think that's one element. And then the second element, while we all talk about AI in general, I read a report recently that basically said 90% of companies today can claim that they spend money on AI, but only 12% can say they've seen results. And so our aspiration in this space is to be that 12%.
We think about it in two ways, and we talk about this internally regularly, that we see ways to be opportunistic, where we sense that something's about to become a meaningful trend in the marketplace that we need to understand, get our hands around. AI falls into that category, whether it's generative AI or other use cases for AI. So opportunistically, yes, but then proactively, we have our own kind of vision for the future of Berkadia, of course. We have a internal software development effort, and we're being proactive, building some of our own technology. But there's opportunities in that to say, hey, we want to augment that by finding the right partner that's outside the organization, or we want to kind of leapfrog what we could do if we did it on our own. And we see that's possible by working with partners. So there's kind of two levers that are driving us to choose what to prioritize in the next 20, 24 months. So our own internal product roadmap, plus the trends that are emerging from the kind of space around us. We especially care about commercial real estate technology, but there are more larger kind of overarching technologies like AI that we care a lot about as well.
Sure. But no, I think I can see a very thoughtful, measured, considered approach which you've been following. So there are things which you'll do within, and there are things with new areas could be potentially, like you said, AI and maybe even blockchain, for example, which we should look at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe one more thought on what might drive us to prioritize something. Within our Be Engaged program, we're identifying companies that we find interesting, compelling in the marketplace, and we're working with the entrepreneurs regularly to say, hey, we'd love to do an experiment, we'd love to do a pilot. How do we get to the phase where we're comfortable with their sophistication, their ability to serve in an organization like ours? And that happens at different times and different phases. Entrepreneurs are more or less prepared depending on what stage they're at. And that can often dictate what we might experiment and test through the Be Engaged program. And that kind of gets woven into our strategy.
Sure. Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
And I know we're kind of stretching it a little bit, but from a co-creation standpoint, right, there's a lot of this is actually co-creation as opposed to a typical, large company, small vendor approach. What some tips for startups which want to engage with you? So if I were to say, listen, there are 3 mantras, you will tell a startup saying, listen, this is what I want to see, and maybe 1 or 2 mantras I don't want to see.
So thinking about things I want to see, honestly, our partnership with T-Hub shows first, there's a little bit of a vetting process that's already gone on. The resources that I think are available through something like this are really incredible. And, to me, this is a place I had to see it to believe it. It really is remarkable. So, that aside, I think the folks that we've enjoyed working with the most are people that have an idea, but they're flexible in terms of their approach and can adapt and really execute on getting something done. I mean, that's the key thing. Not just an ideological thing out on the horizon, but something that can be practical and
Very tangible.
and they can iterate and innovate on the idea.
Thank you.
I would add a piece around the ability to move from a pilot to scale, and the companies that we have seen succeed and we have had success on our side working with, they can grow, and they have usually a plan from how to take it from an idea to an initial product, and then from pilot to scale. And this last part is proven to be very difficult for many, but having a plan, having an understanding of what it would take to move from an initial few to many instances and iterations, I would add that to the mantras of success.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. On the practical level, when we meet with an entrepreneur, maybe for the first time, being very clear about what you're offering is number one. Sad that I have to tell entrepreneurs all the time, I sat with you for 20 minutes and I'm still not sure what you're offering Berkadia or what you're selling. So having a very clear value proposition up front helps a ton. And then being very clear and honest about what you can do today and what you intend to do in the future, and not kind of blurring those lines too much. Because we obviously have a tolerance for working with early stage companies. We've built that into our Be Engaged program at Berkadia. I think entrepreneurs get into the trap of feeling the need or feeling the temptation to kind of oversell what they have versus what they envision they will have. So that's really important.
If I could actually build on Bryce's point, and the mantra of what not to do is on this last point: don't sell fluff. If you're trying to come in with a hot air balloon, we will relatively quickly see through that air balloon. And if we don't see immediately through the pilot and through testing and through discussions, it will become apparent. So if you don't have a fully baked idea, or you're deliberately baking an idea that is not holding water, that will be very quickly apparent.
Last words.
Thank you for your partnership very, very much. And we're excited about this journey in the way, a stodgy old industry like commercial real estate in the United States is changing, and we're excited to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you again. And thank you, Bryce. Thank you, Andrei. Been a real pleasure. And we could go on,
Yep.
but thank you again for all the time, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us for a couple of hours.
Thank you.
Thank you.